Adrian Blackwood tightened his arm around the beautiful woman beside him as they walked into the grand lobby of the city's newest luxury hotel. The crystal chandeliers sparkled overhead. A pianist played softly in the corner. Wealthy guests filled the marble lobby. His secretary laughed as he kissed her forehead. "Book the presidential suite," Adrian said with a confident smile. "We're staying all weekend." The receptionist smiled politely. "Certainly, Mr. Blackwood." She typed for a few seconds before speaking again. "Our owner asked to personally welcome one of our most important guests." Adrian barely looked up. "That's fine." Then, the elevator doors opened. Every employee in the lobby immediately stood a little straighter. The hotel manager smiled warmly. "Good afternoon, Ms. Blackwood." Adrian's smile disappeared. Slow, confident footsteps echoed across the marble floor. His wife, Claire. She wasn't wearing the old dresses he had grown used to seeing. She wore an elegant tailored suit, diamond earrings, and the quiet confidence of a woman who no longer needed anyone's permission to exist. His secretary instantly let go of his hand. The color drained from Adrian's face. "See, Claire?" She looked at both of them without raising her voice, without crying, without shouting, without a single tear. "Welcome to my hotel," she said calmly. "I hope the presidential suite is exactly what the two of you were looking for." The entire lobby fell silent. Employees stared. Guests stopped walking. Phones slowly appeared in people's hands. Adrian opened his mouth, but no words came out. Because the woman he had spent years treating like she was worth nothing had quietly become more powerful than he had ever imagined. And the most heartbreaking part? Claire hadn't discovered his betrayal that morning. She had known for months. She had simply been waiting for the perfect moment to let him realize. He hadn't just lost his wife. He had lost the only woman who had believed in him before the world ever knew his name. 3 years earlier, long before she became the elegant owner of a luxury hotel, long before the world would one day watch her expose her husband's betrayal, Claire Blackwood was simply a woman deeply in love with the man she believed would love her forever. Most people knew Adrian Blackwood as the billionaire CEO, whose face appeared on magazine covers and business news. Very few people knew the woman who had quietly helped build the empire behind those headlines. Claire had met Adrian at university. Back then, he wasn't wealthy. He wasn't famous. He was just an ambitious young man with impossible dreams and an old laptop that barely worked. While other people laughed at his ideas, Claire believed in him. When Adrian couldn't afford another semester's tuition, Claire sold the small gold necklace her late grandmother had left her. When investors rejected his first business proposal, she stayed awake with him night after night, rewriting presentations until sunrise. When he wanted to quit, she held his hands and whispered, "One day they'll see what I already see." He smiled through his tears and made her a promise. "When I make it, Claire, you'll never have to worry about money another day in your life." She believed him, not because she wanted his money, because she trusted his heart. Years later, Adrian became exactly what he had dreamed of becoming: a billionaire. His company grew into one of the most successful businesses in the country. Their photographs filled magazines. People admired them as the perfect billionaire couple. They saw expensive charity galas, luxury cars, beautiful smiles, and glamorous red carpet appearances. What they never saw was the lonely woman behind those smiles. Behind the mansion doors, Claire had quietly given up everything she once dreamed of. She had abandoned her own career because Adrian insisted he needed her by his side. "You don't have to work," he had told her. "I'll take care of everything." She believed that promise too. But over time, taking care of everything became controlling everything. He controlled the money. He controlled every major decision. He decided what she wore to public events. He bought her dresses only when his company needed them to appear together. Once the cameras disappeared, so did his attention. Claire wasn't living like a billionaire's wife. She was living like a woman waiting for the man she loved to come back. Every morning, she still made his coffee exactly the way he liked it. Every evening, she still asked how his day had gone. Every anniversary, she still wrote him handwritten letters. She never stopped loving him. She simply didn't realize she was the only one still fighting for their marriage. Long before Adrian Blackwood became one of the youngest billionaires in the country, he was simply a frightened teenage boy who had just buried both of his parents. The funeral ended quietly. The relatives disappeared one by one. When the house became silent, Adrian sat alone on the front porch, staring at the empty road. "I don't know what we're going to do now," he whispered. A firm hand rested gently on his shoulder. It was his older brother, Nathan Blackwood. Nathan was only 23. He had dreams of finishing college, starting his own engineering company, and building a better future for himself. But the day their parents died, those dreams ended. The next morning, Nathan withdrew from college. He took every job he could find: construction during the day, warehouse shifts at night, weekend delivery work whenever it was available. He slept only a few hours each night, but he never complained. Every paycheck went toward Adrian's tuition, rent, books, and food. Whenever Adrian apologized, Nathan would simply smile. "Your job is to study. My job is to make sure you never have to give up your dream." Years passed. Adrian graduated at the top of his class. With Claire standing beside him and Nathan quietly supporting them both, he started a small technology company from a tiny rented office. Nathan invested the little savings he had left into the business. He fixed broken equipment, delivered products himself, worked without asking for a salary whenever the company struggled. "There will come a day," Nathan often said with a laugh, "when we'll look back at these days and smile." Eventually, that day came. The company exploded with success. Investors lined up. The business expanded across the country. Money poured in faster than any of them had imagined. One evening, standing on the balcony of their first corporate headquarters, Adrian looked at Claire and Nathan. His eyes filled with gratitude. "I swear," he said, "I'll never forget what either of you sacrificed for me." Nathan smiled proudly. Claire squeezed Adrian's hand. Neither of them imagined that success would slowly change the very man they had sacrificed everything to protect. And sometimes, the promises people make with tears are the first promises they forget after success arrives. In those early years, before the private jets, luxury offices, and magazine covers, there were only 3 people chasing one impossible dream: Adrian, Claire, and Nathan. They weren't business partners on paper. They were family. Every morning before sunrise, Nathan unlocked the tiny office and swept the floor before leaving for his construction job. Claire arrived an hour later carrying homemade breakfast because she knew Adrian would forget to eat whenever he was working. By lunchtime, Adrian would already be buried in paperwork, while Claire answered phone calls, organized client meetings, and helped prepare presentations for investors. At night, after Nathan finished work, he came straight to the office instead of going home. The three of them often stayed there until 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. When they became hungry, they couldn't afford expensive meals. Claire would smile and say, "Tonight's special is instant noodles." Nathan would laugh. "One day we'll eat steak in our own company headquarters." Adrian would grin. "And when that day comes, the first table belongs to the three of us." They all believed him. Claire wasn't building the company because she wanted to become rich. She was building a future with the man she loved. Nathan wasn't sacrificing because he expected repayment. He simply wanted his younger brother to have the opportunities he never had. Sometimes, after everyone else had gone home, Nathan would quietly notice little things. The way a young woman smiled at Adrian during a networking event. The way Adrian smiled back a little longer than he should. One evening, as they walked to the parking lot, Nathan placed a hand on his brother's shoulder. "You're going to meet a lot of beautiful women as this company grows." Adrian laughed. "I'm married to the most beautiful one already." Nathan smiled, but his expression quickly became serious. "Then never make her wonder if she's enough." Adrian looked surprised. "I would never hurt Claire." Nathan nodded slowly. "I believe you." Then he added quietly, "But success changes people if they stop guarding their hearts." Adrian shook his head confidently. "Not me." Nathan smiled. "I hope you're right." Standing a few steps away, Claire watched the two brothers laughing together. She smiled to herself. Looking at them, she felt certain of one thing. No matter how successful life became, nothing would ever come between this family. She had no way of knowing that the greatest danger to their family would never be money. It would be what money slowly turned Adrian into. Success did not change Adrian in a single day. It happened so slowly that no one noticed at first. The small office became an entire floor inside a glass skyscraper. Then another floor. Then another building. Magazine covers called him a visionary. Television hosts praised him as the country's newest billionaire. Investors competed for his attention. Everywhere he went, people stood up when he entered the room. At first, Claire was genuinely happy. Every achievement reminded her of the nights they had spent eating instant noodles and dreaming about this very life. She would look at Adrian with pride and whisper, "You did it." Adrian would smile. "No, we did it." But as the years passed, those words slowly disappeared. Business dinners became more important than family dinners. Phone calls became more important than conversations. Meetings became more important than memories. One evening, Claire walked into his office carrying his favorite coffee. He didn't even look up. "Just leave it there." She stood quietly for a few seconds. "I was hoping we could have lunch together today." "I'm busy. We haven't spent any time together in weeks." Adrian sighed impatiently. "Claire, not everything has to be about us." Her smile faded. "I wasn't asking for much." Without lifting his eyes from his laptop, he replied, "You're becoming too emotional." Those words stayed with her long after she quietly walked away. Nathan noticed the change too. One afternoon, he found Adrian standing outside the company after a board meeting, laughing with his young secretary. The conversation itself wasn't inappropriate, but the way Adrian looked at her, Nathan recognized something that worried him. As they walked toward the parking garage, Nathan spoke gently. "Claire misses you." Adrian rolled his eyes. She's overthinking things. Nathan stopped walking. No, Adrian. She's lonely. Adrian adjusted the expensive watch on his wrist. I built this company for our family. Nathan looked at him carefully. And if you're not careful, you'll end up with the company and lose the family you built it for. Adrian laughed softly. You're worrying over nothing. Nathan didn't argue. He simply looked at his younger brother with quiet disappointment. For the first time in his life, he realized the little brother he had sacrificed everything to protect was slowly becoming a man he barely recognized. And back at the mansion, Claire sat alone in the library, holding an old photograph from their university days. In the picture, Adrian had nothing. No fortune, no private jet, no luxury cars, only a worn-out backpack and a smile that reached his eyes. She gently traced his face with her fingertips and whispered, I don't miss the man before the money. I miss the man before he forgot how to love. Outside, the mansion looked like a dream. Inside, the distance between husband and wife grew a little wider with every passing day. The mansion had 23 rooms, a private cinema, an indoor swimming pool, a wine cellar. More luxury than Claire had ever imagined as a university student. Yet somehow, she had never felt more alone. Adrian had made one rule years earlier. You don't need to work anymore, he had told her. I'm your husband. I'll take care of everything. At the time, it had sounded romantic. Now, it felt like a prison. Claire had no salary of her own, no independent income. Every major purchase had to go through Adrian's office. If she wanted to support a charity, she asked Adrian. If she wanted to buy something expensive, she asked Adrian. If she wanted to travel, she asked Adrian. Little by little, without realizing it, she'd stopped making decisions for herself. One Saturday morning, her best friend, Emily, called. We're having lunch today. You have to come. Claire smiled. I'd love to. Then she opened her wardrobe. Most of her dresses were years old. The only new gowns hanging neatly inside were the ones Adrian bought whenever they had to attend company galas or charity events together. Beautiful dresses, chosen by him, not by her. She quietly closed the wardrobe. A few minutes later, she called Emily back. I'm so sorry. I don't think I can make it. Emily sounded disappointed. Claire, this is the third time you've canceled. Claire forced a laugh. I'm just tired. She never admitted the truth. She didn't even have the confidence to buy herself a simple new dress without feeling guilty. That evening, Adrian returned from work. Claire was waiting in the living room. She wasn't angry. She simply wanted to spend time with her husband. Could we watch a movie tonight? She asked with a hopeful smile. Adrian loosened his tie without looking at her. I've had a long day. We haven't spent an evening together in months, she said softly. I'm right here, aren't I? He replied. You want my body in the room, Claire whispered. I miss your heart. For a brief moment, silence filled the room. She thought he might finally understand. Instead, his phone vibrated. A smile appeared on his face. He picked it up immediately. Claire couldn't see the message, but she noticed something she hadn't seen directed at her in a very long time. Warmth. Whatever was on that screen made him smile more than she had in months. He slipped the phone back into his pocket. I have an early meeting tomorrow, he said. I'm going upstairs. Claire nodded quietly. Good night. He didn't answer. She listened to his footsteps disappear down the hallway. Then she looked around the enormous mansion. It suddenly felt much colder, much emptier. She wasn't crying because her husband had forgotten an anniversary. She wasn't crying because he had come home late. She was crying because she was slowly disappearing, while living beside the man who had once promised to never let her feel alone. And somewhere else in the city, a young woman smiled as another message from Adrian appeared on her phone. The message was short. "I can't stop thinking about you." Claire never saw that message, but somehow, she could already feel that someone else had quietly taken the place that once belonged to her. Claire never set out to catch her husband cheating. In fact, for months, she kept convincing herself she was imagining things. Every time Adrian canceled another dinner, there was a business trip. Every time he came home late, there was another board meeting. Every expensive purchase always had a reasonable explanation. At least, that was what she wanted to believe. Then one ordinary Tuesday morning, everything began to unravel. Adrian had left early for the airport. He kissed Claire lightly on the forehead before leaving. "I'll be in Chicago for 2 days," he said. "I'll call you when I land." She smiled gently. "Travel safely." The moment the front door closed, the house became silent again. Claire decided to organize Adrian's study. It was something she rarely did because he disliked anyone touching his desk. As she sorted through a pile of business folders, a small white envelope slipped onto the floor. Inside was a receipt, not for company equipment, not for business travel. A diamond bracelet, worth nearly $70,000. Claire frowned. She turned the receipt over. There was no name, just a handwritten note. "Hope you love it. A." Her heartbeat quickened. She told herself there had to be an explanation. Perhaps it was for a charity auction. Perhaps it had been bought for a client. She placed it aside. Then another receipt appeared. A luxury handbag. Then another. 2 first-class airline tickets to the Maldives. A private ocean villa. Champagne dinner for 2. Couples spa reservation. Claire stopped breathing for a moment. There was one detail she couldn't ignore. Adrian's mother had passed away years earlier. He had no sisters. There was only one woman these gifts could belong to. Still, she refused to accuse him without proof. Over the following weeks, she quietly paid attention. Business trips that didn't match company schedules. Hotel confirmations arriving by email before being deleted. Credit card statements showing purchases in cities Adrian claimed he had never visited. Then one afternoon, Claire attended a company charity luncheon. As she greeted employees, she noticed Adrian's executive secretary, Vanessa. Around Vanessa's wrist was the same diamond bracelet shown on the receipt. Claire recognized it instantly, not because of the price, but because the clasp had been custom engraved. She remembered helping Adrian choose that jeweler years ago. Vanessa noticed Claire looking. For a split second, she nervously pulled down her sleeve. Then she smiled politely. "Good afternoon, Mrs. Blackwood." Claire smiled back with the same grace. "Good afternoon, Vanessa." Nothing else was said. No accusations. No tears. No scene. She finished the luncheon, thanked the guests, and drove home alone. That evening, she stood quietly in front of the mirror in her bedroom. For a long time, she simply looked at her own reflection. Then she whispered the words that would change her life forever. "So, it wasn't my imagination." A single tear rolled down her cheek. She gently wiped it away. "No more tears," she said to herself. "If I cry today, I'll still wake up tomorrow, married to the same man." She straightened her shoulders. For the first time in months, the sadness in her eyes was replaced by something else. Resolve. She wasn't planning revenge. She wasn't planning a public scandal. She was planning freedom. And from that night forward, while Adrian secretly built a life with another woman, Claire quietly began rebuilding her own. That night, Claire didn't sleep. She sat alone in the library, surrounded by old photographs and dusty business journals from the early days of Adrian's company. As she flipped through the pages, she smiled sadly. Every business plan, every investor presentation, every financial projection. She had helped write them. For years, she had convinced herself that she had given up her career. The truth was, she had simply stopped believing in herself. The knowledge was still there. The experience was still there. The woman who had once helped build a company from nothing had never truly disappeared. She had only forgotten who she was. The next morning, Claire quietly opened a small locked box hidden inside her closet. Inside were documents few people knew existed. When Adrian started the company years ago, he had given her a small percentage of the business as a wedding gift. "It isn't worth much now," he had joked back then, "but one day it will be." Neither of them imagined that one day would come. Over the years, those shares had grown into a fortune. Claire had never touched them. She never needed to. She believed she and Adrian were building one future together. Now, she realized she already had the foundation for her own future. She didn't sell everything. She sold only a small portion of her shares, enough to create investment capital, enough to begin again. Within weeks, she quietly hired one of the city's most respected financial advisors, not because she wanted revenge, because she wanted independence. Soon after, she met experienced investors who were planning to develop a luxury boutique hotel. They needed someone who understood business strategy. Claire needed an opportunity. For the first time in years, she walked into a boardroom, not as Adrian Blackwood's wife, but as Claire Blackwood, the woman herself. She asked intelligent questions. She challenged financial projections. She spotted risks others had overlooked. When the meeting ended, one investor smiled. "Mrs. Blackwood," Claire interrupted him politely. "Please, just call me Claire." The investor nodded. "Claire, we've worked with a lot of successful business people. But today, we met someone exceptional." That afternoon, Claire walked out of the building carrying her first signed partnership agreement. As she stood on the sidewalk, she closed her eyes and took a deep breath. For the first time in years, she wasn't waiting for Adrian to build her future. She was building it herself. Meanwhile, Adrian was boarding another flight with Vanessa, believing his wife still knew nothing. He never noticed that while he was secretly investing in another relationship. Claire was quietly investing in herself, and little by little, the forgotten woman inside the mansion was becoming one of the most respected businesswomen in the city. While Claire was quietly rebuilding her future, Nathan Blackwood was fighting a battle no one knew about. Unlike Adrian, Nathan had never stopped working. After helping his younger brother build a billion-dollar company, he stepped away to start a small construction business of his own. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't worth millions. But it was honest work. He employed a handful of local workers, paid them fairly, and went home every evening to his wife and young daughter. He often smiled and told them, "I don't need to be rich. I already have everything that matters." Then, almost overnight, everything changed. A major client declared bankruptcy without paying what they owed. Several projects came to a standstill. Nathan borrowed money to keep paying his employees, believing things would improve. Instead, the debts grew. Then came another devastating blow. His wife was diagnosed with a serious heart condition that required immediate surgery. Nathan sold his truck. He emptied his savings. He even mortgaged the small family home. Still, it wasn't enough. For the first time in his life, the man who had always been the one helping others had no one left to turn to. Except Adrian. Nathan stood outside the towering headquarters of Blackwood Technologies. He wasn't ashamed. He wasn't asking for charity. He simply wanted a loan, a chance to save his wife and rebuild his business. When Adrian saw his older brother waiting in the reception area, he forced a smile. "Nathan, you should have called first." Nathan smiled wearily. "I didn't want to bother you. I need your help." Adrian led him into his office. Nathan explained everything: the failing business, the hospital bills, the surgery, the overdue loans. When he finished speaking, the room fell silent. Adrian slowly leaned back in his chair. "Nathan, this isn't a good time." Nathan blinked. "I'll pay every cent back." "I know you will," Adrian replied. "But if word gets out that my own brother's business has collapsed, it won't look good." Nathan stared at him in disbelief. "You think I'm here to damage your reputation?" Adrian sighed. "I'm protecting everything we've built." Nathan's voice trembled. "We built it together." For a brief second, Adrian looked away. Then he pressed the intercom. "Please show my brother out." Nathan didn't argue. He simply stood, his eyes filled with disappointment more than anger. As he reached the door, he stopped without turning around. "I never wanted your money, Adrian. I just wanted my brother." Then he quietly walked away. From the window of the executive floor, Adrian watched Nathan leave the building alone. He convinced himself he had made the practical decision. He had no idea that it would become the greatest regret of his life. Later that evening, Claire noticed Nathan's name appear on her phone. His voice sounded tired. He never told her what Adrian had said. He simply asked, "Claire, how are you?" She closed her eyes, hearing the sadness behind his words. "I'm managing," she answered softly. After a long silence, Nathan whispered, "Take care of yourself. You've always taken care of everyone else." The call ended. Neither of them realized that they were both carrying the same heartbreak. One had lost his brother. The other was slowly losing her husband. Life slowly divided into three completely different paths. Adrian chased success. Nathan disappeared. Claire quietly rebuilt herself. Months passed. Nathan sold the last pieces of his struggling business to pay for his wife's medical treatment. Even then, it wasn't enough. After his wife passed away, the weight of grief became unbearable. Unable to keep up with the debts, he lost his home. Soon, the man who had once sacrificed everything for his younger brother found himself sleeping in homeless shelters and taking whatever work he could find. He disappeared from the lives of almost everyone who had known him. Almost everyone. Claire never stopped calling. Sometimes Nathan answered. Sometimes he didn't. When he did, he never complained. He never asked for money. He simply asked how she was doing. Claire could hear the exhaustion in his voice, but she also heard something else. Hope. One evening, Nathan quietly told her, "I've been studying at night." Claire smiled. "Studying." He chuckled softly. "I always wanted to study law. I guess it's never too late." Claire's eyes filled with tears. "No, it's never too late." They encouraged each other in ways neither of them fully understood. Nathan reminded Claire that she was capable of becoming more than someone's forgotten wife. Claire reminded Nathan that losing everything didn't mean losing himself. Meanwhile, Claire's business life began to flourish. The boutique hotel project exceeded every expectation. Her calm leadership impressed investors. Within 2 years, she became one of the largest shareholders in the hotel group. She also made careful investments in several growing companies. She never acted impulsively. Every decision was researched. Every investment had a purpose. People in the business world slowly stopped introducing her as Adrian Blackwood's wife. Instead, they began saying, "Have you met Claire Blackwood? She's one of the smartest investors in the city." Claire smiled politely whenever she heard it. She never corrected them. She simply kept working. At home, nothing changed. Adrian still believed his wife spent her days reading books, attending charity luncheons, and waiting for him to come home. He never asked where she went. He never noticed that she had business meetings of her own. He never questioned why she sometimes left before sunrise. He was too distracted. Vanessa had become more than his secretary. She traveled with him on nearly every so-called business trip. She knew his favorite restaurants, his favorite wine, his favorite hotels. She even attended company dinners at Adrian's mansion, smiling politely across the table from Claire as though nothing was wrong. Claire watched the two of them carefully, not with jealousy, with certainty. She no longer needed more proof. She already knew the truth. One afternoon, as Claire stood inside the top floor of the nearly completed luxury hotel, she looked through the floor-to-ceiling windows at the city below. The hotel manager walked over with a smile. "Congratulations, Ms. Blackwood. In a few weeks, we'll officially open." Claire looked around the magnificent lobby. The marble floors, the crystal chandeliers, the grand staircase. She smiled quietly. "It turned out even better than I imagined." The manager nodded. "It will become the finest hotel in the city." Claire's smile slowly faded as another thought crossed her mind. She remembered all the hotel reservations, all the fake business trips, all the lies Adrian had told. Then she looked back toward the entrance of the hotel. For the first time, a quiet plan began to form in her mind. She wasn't going to expose him out of anger. She was going to wait. Wait until the day he walked through those doors believing he was untouchable. Only then would he discover that the woman he had spent years overlooking had quietly built a life he never saw coming. 3 weeks after the grand opening, the Blackwood Grand Hotel had become the most talked-about luxury hotel in the country. Business executives flew in from across the world. Celebrities booked the presidential suites months in advance. Every weekend, the grand lobby buzzed with wealthy guests and flashing cameras. Claire rarely appeared in public. She preferred managing the hotel from her office on the top floor. Very few guests even knew what the owner looked like. That Saturday morning, Adrian adjusted the cuffs of his tailored suit as he pulled his luxury sedan beneath the hotel's grand entrance. Vanessa smiled as the valet opened her door. "I can't believe we finally got a reservation here," she said excitedly. Adrian slipped an arm around her waist. "I told you I'd make it happen." Neither of them noticed the discreet security camera above the entrance. Inside the manager's office, Claire was reviewing financial reports when the head of security knocked gently on the door. "Ms. Blackwood, they've arrived." Claire didn't ask who. She already knew. She walked toward the floor-to-ceiling window overlooking the entrance. There they were. Adrian stepped out of the car first, then Vanessa. Laughing, holding hands, he leaned over and kissed her forehead before they walked inside together. For just a moment, Claire closed her eyes. Not because she was heartbroken, because the final piece of the truth had fallen into place. When she opened her eyes again, the tears were gone. "So," she whispered softly, "it's time." She picked up her phone. "Ask everyone to continue working as normal. No one is to create a scene." "Yes, ma'am," the manager replied. Claire stepped into the private elevator. Downstairs, Adrian approached the reception desk with complete confidence. "I have a reservation," he said with a smile. The receptionist checked the computer. "Yes, Mr. Blackwood. The presidential suite has been prepared." Vanessa squeezed his arm happily. The receptionist smiled politely. "Our owner has asked to personally welcome one of our VIP guests." Adrian barely looked up. "That's very kind." The receptionist nodded toward the elevators. "The owner is on the way down now." A soft chime echoed through the lobby. The elevator doors slowly opened. Every employee instinctively stood a little straighter. The hotel manager immediately stepped forward. "Good afternoon, Ms. Blackwood." Claire walked out with quiet confidence. She wore an elegant ivory suit, simple diamond earrings, and the calm expression of a woman who no longer had anything to prove. Adrian looked up. His smile vanished. His face turned pale. "Claire." Vanessa's eyes widened in horror. She instinctively stepped behind Adrian, as though she could disappear. Claire walked toward them, stopping only a few feet away. She looked first at Adrian, then at Vanessa. Her voice remained perfectly calm. "Good afternoon. I hope your journey wasn't too tiring." Neither of them answered. Claire turned to the receptionist. "Has Mr. Blackwood been checked in yet?" "Not yet, ma'am." Claire nodded once. "Wonderful." She looked back at Adrian. "Then allow me to be the first to officially welcome you." A faint, composed smile appeared on her face. "To my hotel." The word struck Adrian harder than any shout ever could. "My hotel?" he whispered. Claire held his gaze. "Yes. I've owned it for quite some time." The lobby fell completely silent. Guests stopped walking. Employees exchanged stunned glances. Even the pianist's music seemed to fade into the background. Vanessa slowly released Adrian's arm. She could no longer meet Claire's eyes. For the first time since the affair began, she understood exactly whose life she had helped destroy. Adrian tried to speak. "Claire, I can explain." Claire gently raised one hand. "There's nothing you need to explain. I already know everything." She glanced briefly at Vanessa. "I've known for months." Those 6 words drained the last bit of confidence from Adrian's face. He suddenly realized something that terrified him. His wife hadn't been blind. She had simply been patient. And while he had spent months building a secret life with another woman, Claire had quietly built a future without him. The drive back to the mansion was painfully silent. Adrian sat behind the wheel without turning on the radio. Vanessa had already left the hotel in tears, calling a taxi before Adrian even reached the parking lot. For the first time since their affair began, she realized she had never truly mattered to him. She had simply occupied a place that belonged to someone else. Inside the car, Adrian glanced at Claire several times. She looked out the window quietly, watching the city pass by. She wasn't crying. She wasn't angry. That frightened him more than anything. "Claire," he finally spoke. "I know how this looks." She didn't even turn toward him. "It looks exactly the way it is." Nothing more was said. When they arrived at the mansion, Adrian hurried to open the front door for her. It was a gesture he hadn't made in years. Claire noticed, but she simply walked inside. The house felt strangely unfamiliar. The photographs of happier days still decorated the walls. Pictures from university. Their wedding. The day Adrian's company first went public. Memories of two people who no longer existed. Claire walked into the study. She opened a drawer and removed a large cream-colored envelope. She returned to the living room where Adrian stood waiting. Without anger, without bitterness, she handed it to him. Adrian looked down. His heart sank. The words printed across the front were unmistakable. Petition for dissolution of marriage. His hands began to shake. "No," he whispered. "No, Claire." He looked up at her desperately. "You can't be serious." Claire's voice remained calm. "I've never been more serious." Adrian quickly opened the envelope, flipping through the documents. His breathing became uneven. "You've already signed everything." "Yes." "When?" "3 weeks ago." He stared at her in disbelief. "You planned this?" Claire nodded gently. "I prepared for the day I finally chose myself." Adrian dropped the papers onto the coffee table. "I made mistakes. I know I did. But we can fix this." Claire looked at him with sadness rather than anger. "I spent years trying to fix this marriage. I asked for conversations. I asked for time together. I asked you to see me." Her voice trembled for the first time. "But every time I reached for you, you made me feel like I was asking for too much." Adrian lowered his head. He had no answer. Claire continued quietly. "Do you know what finally broke me? It wasn't the vacations. It wasn't the jewelry. It wasn't even the affair." He slowly looked back at her. "It was realizing I had become invisible to the man who once promised to spend his life loving me." Tears filled Adrian's eyes. "I'm sorry." Claire gave a faint, heartbreaking smile. "I believe you are. But apologies cannot erase years of silence." She picked up her handbag. "I'm staying at my penthouse from tonight onward." Adrian took a step toward her. "Claire, please don't leave." She stopped at the front door. Without turning around, she spoke one final sentence. "I already lost my husband a long time ago. Tonight, I'm simply leaving the house where I kept waiting for him to come back." The front door closed softly behind her. Adrian stood alone in the enormous mansion. For the first time, the silence inside the house wasn't peaceful. It was unbearable. Only then did he understand something that no amount of money could change. The woman who had loved him without conditions had finally stopped waiting. 3 weeks after Claire filed for divorce, the first hearing finally arrived. Long before sunrise, reporters had already gathered outside the courthouse. The divorce between billionaire entrepreneur Adrian Blackwood and his wife had become national news. No one knew exactly why the marriage had collapsed. Rumors spread across television and social media. Some blamed Adrian's demanding career. Others claimed Claire wanted his fortune. Only 3 people inside the courtroom knew the truth: Claire, Adrian, and the woman Adrian had chosen over his marriage. Vanessa had disappeared from the public eye after the incident at the hotel. She wasn't there to stand beside him. For the first time in years, Adrian walked into a difficult day completely alone. His lawyer leaned toward him. "Don't worry, Mr. Blackwood. We'll negotiate a reasonable settlement." Adrian nodded absent-mindedly. His eyes searched the courtroom. Claire was already seated on the opposite side. She looked calm. She wore a simple navy blue suit, her wedding ring no longer on her finger. She wasn't looking at him. She was quietly reading a folder on the table in front of her. Adrian felt a pain in his chest. There had been a time when Claire couldn't go a single day without smiling at him. Now, she couldn't even look at him. The courtroom doors opened. The bailiff stepped forward. "All rise." Everyone stood. Adrian straightened his jacket without looking toward the judge's entrance. He assumed it would be another stranger, another ordinary judge. Then he heard a familiar voice. "You may be seated." His heart stopped, slowly, almost unwillingly. He raised his eyes toward the bench. The world around him seemed to disappear. Sitting in the judge's chair, wearing the black judicial robe, was Nathan Blackwood, his older brother. The same brother he had turned away from his office years earlier. The same brother he had abandoned when he needed him most. Adrian stared in complete disbelief. "Nathan," he whispered under his breath. His lawyer looked confused. "Mr. Blackwood?" Adrian couldn't answer. Nathan's expression never changed. There was no anger, no satisfaction, no bitterness. Only the calm dignity expected from a judge sworn to uphold the law. He looked first at Claire, then at Adrian. His voice remained steady. "This court will hear the petition for dissolution of marriage between Mrs. Claire Blackwood and Mr. Adrian Blackwood." He paused briefly. "I expect respect, honesty, and professionalism from everyone present." For a moment, Adrian forgot he was in court. All he could think about was the last time he had seen his brother. Nathan standing quietly in his office, asking for help. Leaving with tears in his eyes after being escorted out, the memory hit him harder than ever before. Nathan continued reviewing the documents before him. "Mrs. Blackwood has requested no claim over Mr. Blackwood's residence." Adrian looked toward Claire in surprise. Nathan continued, "She is requesting no alimony." Another silence filled the courtroom. "She is requesting no personal claim over Mr. Blackwood's remaining private assets." Even Adrian's lawyer looked stunned. He leaned toward Adrian and whispered, "Most people in a case like this would ask for much more." Adrian slowly turned toward Claire. She remained composed. Nathan looked directly at Adrian. "Mr. Blackwood, do you dispute any part of this petition?" Adrian opened his mouth, then closed it again. His lawyer quietly encouraged him. "Answer the court." Adrian lowered his eyes. "No, I don't." Nathan nodded once. The hearing continued. Financial documents were reviewed. Ownership records were presented. Claire calmly explained how she had built her hotel company through years of investments, partnerships, and careful business decisions after becoming financially independent. She never insulted Adrian, never humiliated him, never mentioned Vanessa. She simply spoke the truth. The entire courtroom listened in silence. When it was Adrian's turn to speak, he stood slowly. His voice lacked the confidence that had once impressed investors. He stopped. For the first time in his life, words failed him. He looked toward Claire. "I don't have an excuse. I neglected my marriage. I stopped listening. I became someone I promised I would never become." The courtroom remained silent. Nathan watched him carefully, not as an older brother, as a judge. When Adrian finished speaking, Nathan folded his hands. "This court recognizes that both parties have reached a lawful agreement." He paused. "The marriage between Adrian Blackwood and Claire Blackwood is hereby dissolved." The words echoed through the courtroom. Adrian closed his eyes. He had signed countless billion-dollar contracts throughout his career. None of them had ever felt this heavy. Nathan gathered his files. Before standing to leave, he looked once toward both Adrian and Claire. His expression remained composed. Court is adjourned. The gavel struck once. The sound echoed through the room, not like the end of a legal case, but like the end of an entire chapter of their lives. As Nathan disappeared through the door behind the bench, Adrian remained standing, watching the brother he had lost, watching the woman he still loved quietly walk away. Only then did he understand a painful truth. The hardest judgment delivered that day had not come from the judge. It had come from the consequences of his own choices. The courthouse slowly emptied. Reporters continued shouting questions from behind the security barriers. "Mr. Blackwood, did the divorce catch you by surprise? Do you have anything to say to your ex-wife?" Adrian kept walking. For the first time in years, he had nothing to say. His driver opened the car door. "Home, sir." Adrian stood still for several seconds before quietly shaking his head. "No. There's somewhere I should have gone years ago." An hour later, a black sedan stopped in front of a modest brick house on the quiet side of the city. There were no security guards, no luxury gates, no photographers. Adrian stood outside the front door for almost 5 minutes. He had negotiated billion-dollar business deals without fear. Yet somehow, knocking on this simple wooden door felt impossible. Finally, he raised his hand. 3 gentle knocks echoed through the house. A few moments later, the door opened. Nathan stood there, still wearing a simple white shirt after changing out of his judge's robe. The 2 brothers looked at one another. Neither spoke. Years of memories, years of disappointment, years of silence, all stood between them. Nathan finally broke the silence. "What brings you here, Adrian?" Adrian lowered his eyes. "I came to apologize." Nathan remained quiet. Adrian continued. "I should have come a long time ago." Nathan slowly stepped aside. "Come in." The house was small but warm. Family photographs decorated the walls. Law books filled a wooden bookshelf. Everything about the home felt peaceful, completely different from Adrian's empty mansion. The brothers sat across from each other. For several moments, neither of them spoke. Finally, Adrian took a deep breath. "I've replayed that day in my office 1,000 times. Nathan looked at him calmly. "The day you asked me for help." Adrian nodded. "I told myself I was protecting the company. I convinced myself it was just business." His voice began to shake. "But the truth is, I failed my brother." Nathan remained silent. "I failed the man who gave up his education so I could finish mine. I failed the man who worked double shifts so I could chase my dreams. I failed the man who believed in me before anyone else did." A tear rolled down Adrian's face. "I've spent years calling myself successful. But standing in your courtroom today, I realized I have been one of the poorest men alive." Nathan quietly looked out the window. "When I came to your office, I wasn't asking a billionaire for money." He turned back toward Adrian. "I was asking my little brother for help." His voice never became angry. That somehow hurt even more. "I walked into your office believing I still had a family," Nathan said softly. "I walked out realizing I didn't." Adrian covered his face with both hands. "I'm so sorry." For a long moment, the room was completely silent. Then Nathan stood up. He walked toward the bookshelf and picked up an old framed photograph. It showed 3 young people standing in front of a tiny rented office. Claire, Nathan, Adrian, all smiling. Nathan handed the photograph to his younger brother. "Do you remember that day?" Adrian smiled through his tears. "It was our first client." Nathan nodded. We had nothing. But somehow, we were happier than when we had everything. Adrian stared at the photograph. I want to become that man again. Nathan studied him carefully. Not the billionaire, not the CEO, just his younger brother. Finally, Nathan spoke. I believe people can change, but words don't rebuild broken hearts. They only begin the journey. Adrian slowly nodded. I understand. Nathan placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. If you're truly serious, don't spend your time convincing me. Spend it showing Claire. Adrian looked up. You still think she'll listen to me? Nathan smiled faintly. I don't know. But I do know this. The woman you married fell in love with your heart. If you can truly find that heart again, then maybe, one day, she'll see it too. As Adrian left the house that evening, he wasn't carrying hope. He was carrying responsibility. For the first time in many years, he understood that winning Claire back would not happen with expensive gifts or grand promises. It would happen one honest choice at a time. Nathan's words stayed with Adrian every single day. Don't spend your time convincing me. Spend it showing Claire. For the first time in years, Adrian stopped trying to fix his reputation. Instead, he began fixing himself. He canceled unnecessary business trips. He delegated meetings he once insisted on attending. He visited the employees he had ignored for years, learning their names and listening to their concerns. When one of the company's longtime janitors retired, Adrian personally attended the retirement celebration. His executives were stunned. That was never something the old Adrian would have done. Weeks passed, then months. Not once did Adrian call Claire asking for another chance. Not once did he send flowers. Not once did he try to pressure her into meeting him. He respected the distance she had asked for. One afternoon, Nathan visited Claire at her hotel. She welcomed him into her office with a warm smile. It's good to see you, Nathan. And you too, he replied. They talked for almost an hour, about work, about life, about the future. Just before Nathan stood to leave, Claire looked at him. You came to ask me about Adrian, didn't you? Nathan smiled gently. I came because you're family. Claire lowered her eyes. I don't know if I can ever trust him again. Nathan nodded. I understand. He paused before continuing. I'm not asking you to forget. I'm not asking you to ignore what he did. I'm only asking you to look at who he's becoming. Claire remained silent. Nathan continued softly. I spent years believing I'd never forgive my little brother. But forgiveness didn't begin the day he apologized. It began the day his actions finally matched his words. Claire looked out through the large glass windows of her office. Down below, guests moved in and out of the hotel lobby. She quietly asked, Has he really changed? Nathan smiled. You know, he reminds me of the young man you met at university. A few days later, Claire attended a charity fundraiser for families struggling to pay medical bills. As she walked through the event hall, she suddenly stopped. Across the room, she saw Adrian, not on the stage, not in front of the cameras. He was quietly carrying chairs alongside volunteers, helping set up the hall before the guests arrived. No reporters surrounded him. No photographers followed him. No one even seemed to recognize him. Claire watched from a distance for nearly an hour. He worked without expecting praise, without announcing who he was, without seeking attention. As the event ended, Adrian turned and saw Claire standing near the entrance. Their eyes met. For a brief moment, neither of them spoke. Adrian walked over slowly. He stopped several feet away, leaving enough space to show he respected her boundaries. "I didn't know you'd be here," he said quietly. "Neither did I," Claire replied. There was an awkward silence. Finally, Adrian spoke again. "I don't expect you to forgive me. I know I've lost that right. I just wanted to thank you." Claire looked surprised. "For what?" "For believing in me. Before I believed in myself. And for helping build a life I was foolish enough to take for granted." His eyes filled with regret. "I can't change the past. But every morning I wake up asking myself one question." Claire waited. "How can I become a man worthy of the love you once gave me?" Claire didn't answer immediately. She studied his face. For the first time in many years, she didn't see arrogance. She didn't see pride. She saw humility. Real humility. A faint smile touched her lips. It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet. But it was the first crack in the wall she had built around her heart. As Adrian walked away, Nathan, who had quietly witnessed the conversation from across the room, smiled to himself. He knew healing wasn't something that happened overnight. It happened one sincere step at a time. And for the first time since their family had fallen apart, all three of them were finally walking in the same direction. 6 months passed. The city still knew Adrian Blackwood as one of the country's most successful billionaires. But the people closest to him noticed something far more important. He smiled more. He listened more. He spoke less. The arrogance that had once surrounded him had quietly disappeared. One Saturday morning, Nathan called Claire. "Would you do me one favor?" Claire smiled. "For you?" "Always." Nathan hesitated before speaking. "Come to Mom and Dad's old house this afternoon." Claire looked surprised. "The old house?" "I've restored it," Nathan said softly. "I think it's time all three of us went home." For a long moment, Claire didn't answer. Finally, she whispered, "Okay." That afternoon, Claire parked outside the little house where so many memories had been made. The porch had been repaired. The garden was blooming again. It looked exactly the way it had years ago. Nathan opened the front door with a warm smile. "Welcome home." Claire stepped inside. Her eyes immediately filled with tears. The old family photographs were back on the walls. The wooden dining table where they had once shared simple meals had been carefully restored. Even the tiny clock that used to hang in the kitchen was ticking again. Then she saw him. Adrian. He stood quietly near the window, not in an expensive suit, not wearing a luxury watch, just a simple blue shirt and dark trousers. For the first time in years, he looked like the young man she had fallen in love with at university. Neither of them spoke. Nathan gently cleared his throat. "I'll make some coffee." With a knowing smile, he disappeared into the kitchen, leaving them alone. The silence wasn't uncomfortable. It was honest. Adrian slowly walked toward Claire. He stopped a respectful distance away. "I've stood in front of investors. I've spoken before thousands of people. But I've never been as nervous as I am right now." Claire couldn't help smiling. "You're still terrible at hiding your nerves." They both laughed softly. It was the first time they had laughed together in years. Adrian's smile faded. "I don't deserve another chance." Claire remained silent. "I know that. I also know I can't erase what I did." He looked around the old house. "I broke promises I should have spent my whole life keeping. I hurt the woman who loved me when I had nothing. I turned my back on the brother who gave up everything so I could succeed. His voice trembled. If you walk away today, I'll understand. But I needed you to know something. He looked into her eyes. You were never hard to love. I was too blind to love you the way you deserved. Tears rolled gently down Claire's cheeks. Not tears of pain. Tears of release. She took a slow step toward him, then another, until they stood face to face. You know what hurt me the most? She asked quietly. Adrian lowered his head. I know. No, Claire said softly. You don't. He looked up. What hurt me most was believing the man I loved was gone forever. She reached out and gently took his hand. But these last 6 months, I've watched you become that man again. Adrian's eyes filled with tears. Claire smiled through her own. I'm not giving you a second chance because you begged. I'm giving you a second chance because you changed. You stopped asking me to believe your words and started showing me your heart. Without another word, Adrian wrapped his arms around her. This time, he held her gently, not as someone trying to keep her from leaving, but as someone grateful she had chosen to stay. Nathan quietly returned from the kitchen, carrying 3 cups of coffee. He stopped when he saw them. A smile slowly spread across his face. He placed the cups on the table without saying a word. Some moments didn't need words. They simply needed witnesses. As the 3 of them sat together around the old wooden table, laughing about university days, remembering their first tiny office, and dreaming about the future instead of mourning the past, Claire looked at the 2 brothers and smiled. Their family wasn't perfect. It never would be. But it was whole again. Outside, the evening sun bathed the little house in a warm golden light. It was the same light that had shone on them years earlier, when they had nothing but dreams. Only this time, they had learned the lesson that success had almost stolen from them. Money could build an empire. Power could command respect. But only love, forgiveness, and family could truly make a person wealthy. And for Adrian Blackwood, that became the greatest fortune of all. If this story touched your heart, remember this. The greatest love isn't the one that never makes mistakes. It's the one that's willing to change, forgive, and grow. If you enjoyed this story, you'll absolutely love the other emotional billionaire love stories we've created for you. And if you want even more exclusive stories, I've put together a special ebook featuring 5 unforgettable billionaire romance stories in one collection, filled with love, heartbreak, powerful twists, and the kind of endings that stay with you long after you've finished reading. You'll find the link to the ebook in the description below. Before you go, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe if you haven't already, and share it with someone who believes that true love is worth fighting for. Thank you for spending your time with us, and I'll see you in the next unforgettable story.